Under Attorney General Merrick Garland's watch, the Biden Justice Department has really created two tiers of justice. And as we had our hearing this week, that became so evident in the way that the Attorney General chose to answer questions, or maybe some things that he chose not to say at all. But we have someone who does know how the Department of Justice works and does know the answer to some of those questions. And we are so pleased to welcome him. He's been the former acting Attorney General, and he is also the host of Liberty and Justice. It is on iHeartRadio. Matt Whitaker, I am delighted that you are joining us for Unmuted.
Senator, it is great to be with you, and I was so honored to get the request, and I immediately jumped on it because I'm a big fan, and really I think what you're doing in the Senate is pretty awesome.
Well, thank you so much. Let's get right into this hearing yesterday. You know, the Attorney General seemed not to have answers when it came to the picketing that's taken place outside of the justice houses, or the protests that have taken place around pregnancy centers, even some of the fire bombings that have happened at churches and at pregnancy centers. So why hasn't the Attorney General moved forward with these prosecutions of people that have committed domestic terrorism, have committed these fire bombings, are breaking federal law, protesting outside of justices' homes?
Yeah, that's such an important point, and one that, I heard you and others yesterday make. And, I think it boils down to one, priorities, and second, just prosecutorial will. It's not hard, as we've seen. They did it, sort of in another context, where they could take all the cell phone data, all the, video camera, face recognition software, all the technological tools that the FBI and the DOJ have available. And if they want to, they can prosecute anyone and everyone for crimes. But in these cases, crisis pregnancy centers and, the justices' houses, clear violations of federal law, this Justice Department is just ignoring it. They're not doing the will of the people. And, to your point at the beginning, I think this is a two-tiered system of justice. And one of the things I saw Attorney General Garland really not seem to comprehend is what is happening, which is the people on the right, conservatives, Republicans, seem to be singled out for extra prosecutorial attention. And while folks on the left, get away with clear violations of federal law, and there doesn't seem to be any desire to bring them and hold them accountable to the rule of law.
What did you make of the Attorney General's response to me when I asked him, tried to drill down with him on why he had not gone after a group, Jane's Revenge, that took credit for firebombing a pregnancy center in Nashville, the Hope Clinic. And he said, well, most of the time, these individuals did their crimes at night, and they were harder to find than people that were out peacefully protesting on the sidewalks during the day. What did you make of that?
Again, it boils down to he has no desire to get to the bottom of who Jane's Revenge is, whether it is a domestic terrorist organization, whether these individuals are well-funded, well-organized. The left, we've seen this behavior several times. Antifa, it comes to mind, and what happened also in places like Portland and Seattle, where this Department of Justice just seems really unwilling to go against political violence. And I understand, and I know you understand as well, the importance of the First Amendment and people's right to speak. But at the same time, we have, as a society and as a self-governing people, decided that there is a line, and crossing that line is a federal crime. Obviously, at the Department of Justice, we've brought down violent biker gangs. We have, a long history of figuring out these organizations, figuring out who their leaders and members are, and then prosecuting them. And in this case, in the case of Jane's Revenge that you pointed out in your questioning, this Department of Justice has no desire not only to bring those people to account, but really to stop that political violence. And that's the scariest thing. If there is a favored political violence by an administration, like we're seeing in the Biden administration, if you're for abortion and commit violent acts in furtherance of trying to advance that agenda, they seem to turn the other blind eye and not be willing to bring those cases.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And not only is it the two tiers when it comes to that political violence, we see it in bias also. And I thought his comments concerning the Hunter Biden case, where he says, he's not interfering with the Delaware Attorney General in that investigation. How are we ever going to know what truly happened with Hunter Biden, James Biden, Biden Incorporated, and the president?
Yeah, and I watched that very carefully. I've been, as you know, an outspoken proponent of, a blind Department of Justice that holds everyone to account no matter what their powerful political lineage might be, including the Bidens. And I think U.S. Attorney Weiss certainly is in control of that. But the AG was not honest in a couple areas that concerns me. One is, unlike a special counsel, he is still going to have a lot of ability to control that investigation because it's in the line of command up through the Deputy Attorney General. That's one concern. And the second concern is many of these crimes it require, under the U.S. Attorney's Manual and Department of Justice prosecutorial guidelines, some component, whether it's the criminal division, whether it's the National Security Division, or others to also sign off on that. That's another way, kind of almost an invisible hand to control that U.S. attorney without, saying we're interfering. But there is certainly a lot of main justice involvement in this investigation. You could just tell by the way he was not being truthful about where others are making decisions in addition to the U.S. attorney in Delaware. And
I think that was of such concern to us. There were a couple of our members that pointed out the disparity in the way people were addressed. You look at the raid at Mar-a-Lago, which it has come forward from whistleblowers that the FBI pushed back on that. And then you look at the Biden documents, and he did not want anybody to know about that. And of course, it appears that that main justice overrode the FBI in saying, go conduct the raid at Mar-a-Lago. And there were insufficient answers around that.
No, I agree. And, I think you and I both believe, especially in the Mar-a-Lago case, that there were less intense ways of doing and obtaining whatever they were trying to get. Obviously, yes. President Trump believes he was cooperating. His team was working to determine what was personal, what was, presidential, what was classified, and sort through the post transition documents. And you point out, I think, such an important point that's not highlighted enough. In the case of Joe Biden, when they discovered those documents, the Department of Justice knew, the archives knew, and they all entered into a conspiracy with the White House. And that's all it is. It's an agreement among two or more people. It's a conspiracy to make sure that never saw the light of day. And I don't think we'll ever know how the media 3 months later actually, got that story. But that 3 months of their silence and their not saying that, we have an equivalent case here with President Biden, I think really was a disservice to the American people, not only leading up to the election, but also just as President Trump was, taking a lot of political hits for behavior that clearly not only, Joe Biden, Mike Pence, others have done. I still am mystified as someone that has had a lot of access to classified materials. I'm still a little flummoxed as to how those end up at home or in your office, but they obviously did in many cases. And, that I think that points to an important role that I wish, the Attorney General would have tried to offer a little more in the solutions as to how we protect America's secrets. I didn't see anything from him on that front.
Well, we saw it as being two different approaches depending on who you are and what side of the political aisle you are on, and two tiers of justice. And for Tennesseans, that is something that truly upsets them and concerns them for the future of our nation. Well, you're going to find Matt Whitaker at Liberty and Justice on iHeartRadio and online, Matt Whitaker 46. I think I got that right.
That's right. Yep.
And you can keep up with me online at Marsha Blackburn. Thank you so much for joining us for Unmuted with Marsha.